All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars Reacts. It is time for a new Motorweek Retro Review reaction. This one is the 2011 Chevy Cruze. Now, I actually wanted to do the more recent one after 2016, but this is what Motorweek had available. It was this or the diesel. I decided to do this because it's another example of General Motors America chasing an affordable, reliable small car. And well, I have some thoughts on it. So as always, just you and me going to have a chat. Sit back, make yourself comfortable in your comfy chair, grab yourself a beverage of choice. We have some water here this morning. We're done with the coffee. And let's go back, unbelievably, think about this, 14 years to Chevrolet.
Motorweek, television's original automotive magazine.
For decades, Detroit's automakers have been either unable or unwilling to sell world-class small cars in America. Too often, their small cars were dumbed down to meet low cost and low expectations of a public that sees them only as basic transportation. Now, finally, we're starting to see some of the great small cars Detroit builds for other countries come here. First, it was the subcompact Ford Fiesta, and now it's this car, the compact Chevrolet Cruze. The 2011 Chevrolet Cruze is already sold in some 60 markets other than North America, where it plays the role not of commuter car, but of mainstream family sedan. So while technically a compact, like the Cobalt before it, the Cruze is big for its ilk. At 181 inches in overall length, it's 6 inches longer than a Toyota Corolla.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know it was sold in that many countries. So the J cars, the Cavalier came out, and it sold very well. It in the Sunfire, and somewhere in the 90s they redesigned it into a much smoother, more aerodynamic. I had one of those. Cheap interior, and I've talked about that car a lot here on the channel, but it was extremely well reviewed and very, very competitive against the other cars that were out there. I just thought it felt a little lower rent. And then came the Cobalt, which I always thought looked pretty good, but I don't get the impression it was terribly reliable. From what I've heard, it was pretty terrible. So GM seems to, for small cars, my opinion of GM is either they can get the styling right or they can get reliability right, but they couldn't seem to get it all right at the same time. I've said that before about General Motors. Let's look at the styling a little bit deeper here and I'll talk about it.
From its familiar two-tiered Chevy grille to its thick-set back end, the Cruze exudes a taut international profile and an overall look that's substantial but also very safe. Substantial too are Cruze wheels and tires with standard 16-inch and optional 17s and 18s. The Cruze
No, before they go on to the engine, that was kind of brief. Styling, I really like this car. If I really nitpick a little bit, I think that the tail lights are a little too large, a little too bulbous. I think the front headlights they seem a little disproportionate. And what really drives me up the wall is the way the hood fits with that front fascia. So, I mean, if we look at this picture right here, the clamshell hood comes down right on top of the headlights. I'm sure that is a cost reason to do it. It also provides the hood a little cutout right there for that two-tier Chevy grille that they're talking about, which looks very Malibu-ish. Nothing wrong here except because of the way that line is drawn of where the hood runs in there, it doesn't look like it fits properly. It looks like the car has a little bit of an overbite. I don't know. Maybe you don't see it. Maybe I don't think buyers really cared, but it just looks a little off. And the other thing I want to say real quick is I've had a theory for a long time that American manufacturers have had trouble committing to fully competing with the Japanese in size. Now, in the old days, when you think about the Dodge Omni or the Chevy Citation, you know, a small car was a cheap car. Then you started to realize that smaller cars could be good, like equipped well, and justify the price. American manufacturers tried to do that, but they never seemed to get down to the size of what the Japanese were doing. I'm sure there's examples out there, but one example, this is not a small car, but the Seville STS in like 92, 93, thoroughly modern, thoroughly competitive, very well-reviewed car, but it's still big compared to its competitors. And here's another example. They know what the Corolla is. They see that as a standard, but they made it 6 inches longer. They made it bigger. That makes you heavier. Is it because they can't get the frame as light, as spacious, and as safe as the Corolla? Or was it because this was an international car, other markets demanded a slightly larger car to fit that everyday family sedan, and then we just brought it here as the smallest? Now, there were some exceptions. I loved the Fiesta. They actually mentioned that earlier, and I loved its size. But this is just, I like it. You know, if it was 2011 and I was in the market, it was between a Corolla and this was bigger, as long as it felt bigger inside and in the trunk, I'd absolutely get this, if I ignored reliability.
The Cruze Powertrain lineup will surprise many. Most trims are fitted with a Trick 1.4-liter variable timing turbocharged i4, rated at 138 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque. Only the base Cruze LS uses a non-turbo 1.8-liter Ecotec with 138 horsepower and 123 pound-feet of torque. The LS and high-mileage Cruze Eco models come with a standard 6-speed manual, while others start and end with a 6-speed manual mode automatic. That provides Cruze with government fuel economy ratings of 24 city, 36 highway using regular gas. We saw a solid 31.5 in real-world driving. Cruze Energy Impact Score is a modest 12.2 barrels of oil consumed per year, with a smallish carbon footprint of 6.7 annual tons of CO2 emitted. But
so, engine-wise, I don't have a strong feeling towards these engines, or really one way or the other. Certainly, if you're more mechanically minded or you had experience with them, you can tell me if these were reliable or not. But while I always tend to lean towards base engines to begin with, primarily for cost reasons, having the non-turbo would be appealing, and certainly without a horsepower benefit. I don't have to worry about the turbo going out at some point too. It's another thing I don't have to worry about braking. And a 6-speed automatic, competitive 6-speed manual was available. That's great. I hate the shifting the automatic manually. I don't like that on any car. That's not a criticism of the Cruze. But it seems like a very competitive powertrain. My complaint here is my Honda is 3 years newer than this. It's a 2014. And it gets substantially better gas mileage. Other than the cost savings of buying a smaller car and buying a Chevy, what's the benefit? My car makes more horsepower and gets, I don't know, about 9 miles per gallon better on the highway. And I regularly get 29, something like that, in mixed driving. I find that very frustrating. It seems a little low to me. I guess I just have a superstar of a car.
hypermilers will be more interested in the Cruze Eco due later. With a slew of aero upgrades, it will have a highway rating of 42, more than the smaller Ford Fiesta. There are even more surprises inside. The interior of the Chevy Cruze is a real game changer. Not only is it very quiet and near midsize and roominess, the quality of materials is impressive. Instead of acres of hard plastics, you've got soft materials on the face of the dash and the doors. And over here around the center console and the center stack, expensive look piano black accents. That's not what I would expect to find in a moderately priced compact car. This edition of Chevy's cockpit interior theme is very handsome, although some felt slightly pinned in by it. The EasyScan motorcycle-like gauge cluster with trip computer screen fits well. Seats are comfortable, nicely bolstered with good lower back support. Our 2LT trim added leather and heat. All Cruze models are well equipped with air, 6-speaker CD XM stereo, keyless entry, and lots of cup holders and storage options. And for safety, Cruze wears OnStar and an impressive 10 airbags, including 2 rear seat side airbags. The rear seat offers ample room for 3, although legroom is less than we'd hoped. But fold the 60/40 seat backs and the trunk's already huge 15 cubic feet of space grows exponentially. So it may be...
Okay, so lots to talk about there. Back to front, as I like to do. 15 cubic feet for the back seat for a car like this. That's fantastic. Split folding rear seats, fantastic. They complained about the legroom. I'm surprised they didn't say something about the footroom, because the actual space in front of the knees felt fine, but by the time you got down to the ankles, that looked pretty tight. But it is a small car. Up front. So, I've said before here on the channel, I think I've changed my opinion about General Motors, and I would be willing, after decades of being disappointed with them, of giving them a try again. And I always hear from people who are like, GM is making crap. But this era right here, after the downturn, right, after the Great Recession, after the bankruptcy, I really felt like they made a giant leap forward in a lot of ways. I like this interior. It's not exactly my taste. This is an interesting car of being a little bigger. They keep mentioning it's more family size, quiet, but inside, it's like they were going for a more youthful market. Maybe young family is what the actual goal was here. I could nitpick it, but overall, I like it. I like it a lot. I don't like the silver plastic, right? The brushed aluminum, what they're going for here. I don't really love that. And it's got this big V shape right there, very similar to what Cadillac would do, right? With their haptic touch and in a more of a V shape. This just looks a little garish, a little cheap. I don't love it. And then you add some piano black in there, which I don't love, but at least they did something to try to brighten it up, and it looks better than what they did on the Cobalt, which I thought looked very, very low rent. The rest of the dash looks good. And again, if I'm nitpicking, a lot of buttons, and I don't love what they call the motorcycle style gauges. That to me it's not pretentious. It's pretending your car is sportier than it is. You saw them do the same thing back in the day with Pontiac, and I've always hated it. They do it on the Camaro, or they did it on the Camaro. I don't know what it is. I feel very viscerally against those type of gauges. Just give me gauges. Don't try to make it something else, because that's not what the car is to me. Continuing.
World-class in design, but does it drive that way too? With no notable turbo lag, initial throttle response is great, but tall gearing bogs things down from there. Still, a 0 to 60 of 9.2 seconds is within expectations for an economy sedan. The quarter mile passed in a lazy 17.1 seconds at 82 miles per hour with mostly smooth shifts. High-strength steel gives the Cruze a solid platform to mount a front strut and rear torsion beam suspension. Engineers added a centering Watts linkage, here called Z-Link, for added roll and lateral control. Traction and stability control are standard. Surprise again, the Cruze scoots through the cones with the kind of agility you expect from a car designed for Europe and beyond. Understeer is moderate and consistent with good steering feedback. The driver can actually concentrate on having a little fun. Overall, Cruze handling is safe and solid. The Cruze is fitted with ABS front disc and rear drum standard, with all disc an option. Our car's disc drum combo averaged an acceptable 129 feet from 60 to 0. Reaction was stable and the pedal reasonably firm. On normal roads,
That, to me, those results, that to me tells me that General Motors, wherever the car was designed in the world, they picked probably not a Mazda, right? Maybe the Honda, maybe the Toyota, something like that. And they set those benchmarks and then they went out to just hit it. And I don't mean that as criticism. The acceleration, I could say it was a little slow, and they actually said, you know, it was the quarter mile was lazy, is the words they used. I can criticize it, but I think that's thoroughly competitive for what is a small car. They commented on the shift quality, and that's unusual for General Motors. Could be that they were just at full throttle, and is it smoother when you're not trying to gun it? That's my suspicion here. Through the slalom, looked fantastic. Braking, I want to say it's a little long, about 15 feet maybe, but it's probably very competitive for the class of car it is. So what you end up with is a good small car that has just a little bit of zip to it. I have no problem with these results. In fact, it makes me like the car a little bit more. It's unpretentious.
Cruze ride quality is also solid. It conveys the quietude of a premium level vehicle. Cruze prices are higher than the outgoing Cobalt, but they're still very reasonable. The Cruze LS starts at $16,995, the LT at $18,895, and the LTZ at $22,695. The success of the 2011 Chevrolet Cruze is critical to GM's long-term global prosperity. Fortunately, it beat all of our expectations and then some. It's a well-equipped, roomy, high-quality small car that should make even the most dyed-in-the-wool import buyers take a long and hard second look.
Very interesting. The prices strike me just a little high. Not outrageously slow, but just gosh, didn't that sound just a little high for the base model? These would be a deal used about 2 years later. You know, they keep saying going for the imports, being competitive with the imports and attracting import level buyers. And you know what? If it held up and the materials held up, I would agree. Let me know below. Again, I mean that seriously. If you had one or you had experience with it or you have opinion about the engines, the transmissions and everything else, I like this car. I like this car a lot. And I really would like to do the redesign in 2016, I believe it was. I thought that car was fantastic looking. But there's always that hesitation of like, this looks great. It looks good outside. It looks good inside, and it drives well and da-da-da-da-da. But would the Corolla be the better long-term buy? Now, I don't think most buyers out there think about it like that. I think a lot do, and I think a lot of my viewers do too. That would be my overwhelming concern, is the Toyota is a known thing. It's going to be, I think, more boring outside, more boring inside, a more boring engine, more boring. But the certainty, the confidence that 5 and 10 years later, it's still going. I wouldn't have that about this car. That's what I'm trying to say here is I like this car. I've thought about this car. I've looked at this car. I've looked at one of these for my son, as a matter of fact. And I've never gotten close to buying one, but I've always had that like, wow, I kind of like this. But what am I getting? Great review of a car that tests really, really solid against the competition. The question is, well, 10 years later, how did it really hold up if they were trying to compete directly head-to-head, mano-a-mano with the imports? And I'll close with this. I'm looking at this car again. I want to criticize that front styling for the hood a little bit. Watching the road test, watching the slalom, and being pretty impressed with it overall. You know what my overwhelming thought, while watching this live here with you, this is why I do these the way I do, guys. My thought, watching this, it wasn't the Civic, it wasn't the Corolla, it wasn't the Mazda 3. All I could look at was say, why wouldn't I just get a Jetta? Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, y'all. Hope you have a good one.